There are all sorts of ructions all over the world as people get more and more dissatisfied with how the established parties aren't serving their needs. In this video, I'm going to be talking to a representative from a new and upcoming party in the UK and finding out what they're about. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for for watching and for joining. I am joined by Yvonne Ridley, which she is one of the members of the Alba Party. And I hadn't really heard about the Alba Party much. We'll find out more about them now. Before I introduce her, please subscribe, follow me on Twitter, CryptoRichYT, join my official Telegram announcements channel. And if you're watching this on YouTube,
NordVPN is becoming more than just a VPN. Threat protection will guard your device against malicious websites, malware, trackers, and intrusive ads, even if you're not connected to a VPN server at the time. Step up your cybersecurity and stay safe.
The world has failed, I tell you. The world has failed yet again.
come over and follow me on Rumble, bit.ly/CryptoRich Rumble, bit.ly/CryptoRich Odyssey, or on 3Speak, bit.ly/CryptoRich 3Speak. Those are all censorship resistant platforms. And one of the things I forgot to tell you, Yvonne, because I post mostly on those three platforms, you can talk freely. You can say all kinds of controversial things that perhaps sometimes YouTube's a bit sensitive to. Yvonne, thank you so much for making yourself available.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me onto your show.
Yes. And I think we need to give a shout out to Chris Coverdale, who connected us. I've done a lot of videos with Chris about how we can legally, lawfully withhold tax to prevent our governments from engaging in genocide and terrorism and funding war. But that's not what we're going to be talking about in this video, maybe some other conversation. But before we go into the party that you're representing, the Alba Party, do you want to say a little bit about yourself, who you are, why you are, when you are, what you do?
Yes, I'm a British-born author. Anybody who is good at accents will realise I come or originate from just over south of the Scottish border near Newcastle. And I've been a journalist for over 40 years. And 10 of those years were in Fleet Street, which was quite insane at the height of telephone hacking and all the nonsense that went on there. And I did take the Murdoch shilling. So yes, that's my journalistic background. I was a royal correspondent for a while. One of my roles. Another role was as an investigative journalist for the Sunday Times Insight team. So, you know, I've been around.
Yeah, I remember that, the Insight team, the Sunday Times Insight team, because that was in the days when there used to be real journalism and not just repetition of establishment.
Well, yes, there's very little free press at the moment. I moved to Scotland from London in 2011. I heard rumours that the Scots were rebelling and that they wanted to vote for independence. So I thought I would like a bit of that. So I came up to the Scottish borders. It was about as far north as my husband was prepared to go. And I worked very hard towards the referendum of 2014.
Yes. No,
And we,
Yvonne, by the way, if I can just provide a little bit of background, because most of my viewers are going to be from the United States, because that's the largest
Mhm.
English language speaking nation in the world, right? So for people who know, so Newcastle is known for, well, it's in the northeast of England, just below Scotland, and it's known for people who don't wear any clothes at all in the winter because they're so hardy, right? And also
yes,
a
very.
very distinct accent in Newcastle, Geordie accent. And what we're going to be talking about, Alba Party is a Scottish party, I understand, and
Mhm.
campaigning for independence for Scotland. So I just wanted to say that, right? So people are fully up to speed. And so you
Yes.
got involved in the 2014 referendum for Scottish independence.
Yes, and we got 45%, which was a great result from a standing point of 0. So we were quite happy with that. But we've campaigned ever since for independence. And if a large number of your audience is from America, that's great because they'll understand, being a former British colony,
Yes.
that it's not really that much fun. And, like in Scotland, we don't have a problem with the English, but we do want to cut free from Westminster, very much in the same way as the Americans thought, you know what, we can stand on our own 2 feet better without being under the British yoke of colonialism, and who can blame them? So I'm hoping that our Scottish friends will support Scotland's bid for independence.
Okay.
And, we're still going very strong at it. Our leader is a former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, who, his total reason for breathing is independence. And, we want to get it in his lifetime.
Okay. Now,
So,
let me just,
yes, we...
Yvonne, sorry, forgive me, right? I am going to interrupt, and you're free to interrupt me as well, right? Because I want to, not many people are familiar with the Scottish independence movement outside of Scotland, perhaps, right? Or they'll just know a little bit about it from what they've picked up on the mainstream media. So I want to dig it out a little bit, so this is clear for people, who don't have much of an understanding of it. So I would say, well, look, there's already a Scottish independence party in power, the SNP. They want Scottish independence, and they're doing a really fabulous job. I don't think so, right? So why shouldn't, people go for the SNP versus the Alba Party? What makes you distinct? And sorry, Alex Salmond, he set up the SNP originally.
Yeah, he was
The first minister. The first minister.
the First Minister, and the SNP was very much, he inherited it, but it was very much his baby, and he turned the Scottish government into a really progressive government with free university education, free medical prescriptions, which would also interest your American viewers, I'm sure, and ring-fenced the National Health Service so that it would be allowed to continue to function as we all know and love it. And it was a very progressive government. He stepped down, and Nicola Sturgeon, she took on the mantle of First Minister, and she had an amazing success in elections, and eventually we had over 50 seats in the Westminster Parliament that were all SNP. It was an astonishing victory because it was never meant to happen, and I think people were shocked, but it did. But she was so busy winning elections that she just took her eye off the independence, and that was, of course, our whole raison d'etre, was independence. And then people started to get a little bit exasperated and thinking, why have we stopped talking about independence? Why are we diluting the message? And people became disaffected, and as a result there was a big splinter, and Alex Salmond launched the Alba Party, and it's only 2 years old,
Right.
but it has got 2 MPs in the Westminster Parliament. It has an MSP in the Scottish Parliament at Holyrood. We also have at least 1 councillor. So we're represented in all administrations of government, which is quite exciting. And although we only have a few members, I have to say that they're punching well above their weight and are being disruptive when we need to be disruptive. Neil Hanvey, who is one of our MPs and the leader in Westminster, he was slung out by the Speaker in a rather robust manner and was ordered out of the British Parliament. And it was unjustified, we felt, but nevertheless, the MPs that we do have are headline makers. Our other MP is a former Justice Minister, Kenny McCaskill, who inflamed the Americans when he showed some compassion and had the Lockerbie bomber released and returned to Libya into the arms of his family. He was dying of terminal cancer, and it was an act of compassion which, you know, let's face it, is very rare in the world today, where some horrendous, cruel and wicked decisions are being made. So that's our other MP, Kenny McCaskill, who has highlighted how energy rich Scotland is, and yet we are all struggling to pay our bills. Out of the whole of the UK or the United Kingdom, Scotland's people are paying the highest fuel bills, which is very annoying since we own 95% of the oil, which is coming out of the North Sea.
Well, okay, it is annoying and it is understandable because it's bloody cold in Scotland. I've been there in the summer, right, and in the winter, and the long, long nights in the winter, so I can understand. And I do get it because Scotland is resource rich with oil and gas as well. But surely the English aren't going to let go of that, you know, because England's, like other imperialist hegemons, has been waging war over resources for hundreds of years. You think they're going to, I mean, just look at what's happening in the Middle East.
Well, we're being looted and plundered.
You are being
and
looted and
Scotland
plundered.
is treated, yeah, and Scotland is being treated like the government's private little money tree. And when funds are running low, they head up to Scotland and they divert our energy, our power, and we're getting a little bit tired of that now. And we think that we're big enough and tough enough and strong enough to run our own economy, and do very well out of it.
Okay. Now, would that mean you'd rely more and more on oil, on income from oil and gas, if you were independent?
Well, Scotland also has other great resources. Whiskey, for starters, and it's tourism.
Yes.
It's natural resources.
It's very beautiful.
Salmon. You know that Scotland is a very.
They're all good.
It's a very rich country in terms of food and produce, fruit and fish.
Okay, but Yvonne, the real money is in oil and gas, right? You look at
yes, it is,
and the Emirates and, you know, those oil-rich nations, right? The real money is that, because I worked in Qatar for about 4 or 5 years, and I just saw it. All they're doing is digging money out of the ground, right?
Yeah.
But now, is that something that that Alba Party advocates? And if so, what about the concerns raised by the climate change activists?
Well, the the Alba Party does have green credentials, but, you know, we have to be pragmatic and realistic about taking the oil for Scotland, because it's just off the shores of Scotland. So surely it is better to use local resources than send tankers halfway around the world and bring them back again with oil and gas for our people, when we could just as easy take it from Scotland. You know, the carbon footprint would be much smaller by tapping into our own resources than, as I say, sending tankers halfway around the world to
fair enough.
fill up.
Fair enough. And perhaps I could have a separate conversation video with your I don't know, your Green Party, not your Green Party, your environment's spokesperson or whatever.
Mhm.
I'd love to do that. Okay, then what are your main planks apart from that? So, okay, so you want independence, you want to use the energy. People in the south like me are then going to freeze, right? We're going to have to sort it out. We'll have to buy it from Scotland. Pay
We'll look
market
after
rates.
you.
Sorry?
We'll look after you.
Oh, thank you so much. Right. So we'll have to do that, which is fair point, because it's, you know, India and Africa and many other parts of the world have been plundered by the Europeans, and enough. Okay. So what about your other platforms with regards to, I don't know, just some of your main policies?
Well, I think that Scotland would be in a position to have an ethical foreign policy, and this would probably be displayed in a reluctance to enter into any imperial wars or any illegal invasions. I think we're not peaceniks, you know. We'd obviously want to defend our country, so we'd still maintain a military.
Mm-hmm.
But there is certainly no need for Scotland to continue with its nuclear weapons program.
Right.
We don't want it. You know, we just think that having nuclear weapons makes us less safe in a world that, you know, where the doomsday clock is now 90 seconds off midnight.
Okay.
So I think we would be promoting peace. Some of the greatest philosophers and peacemakers in the world have come from Scotland. There's a great heritage for thinkers and you know, the Carnegie libraries, they all have roots in Scotland. And there's a great heritage, and we would draw on that as well. We'd also like to reinvest in the country so that the quality of life for Scottish people is improved.
Mm-hmm.
We're not the healthiest nation in Europe, and I think that we would be working on to have improved pensions. Our pensioners are among the poorest in Europe. Yes. And people find that quite astonishing when you consider that the UK is the 8th wealthiest country in the world, and yet we have the poorest pensioners. Yes. There are serious ailments coming back that are as a result of poverty. You know, rickets is coming back. Children being suffering from malnutrition, and we find that quite shameful. So we would want no child to go without.
Sure. Okay.
We would want to eradicate child poverty. It's crazy in the 21st century, in the 8th richest country in the world, we're still talking about child poverty.
Yes. Well, Yvonne, I completely get it, right? So it sounds to me like a lot of the policies that you're expressing are the ones that are, you know, fairly standard. You want the people to be richer. You want to take good care of them. You know, I'm sure you'll say like good education system, all of that. But I think the thing that's critical, and how come Scotland is so poor, and I don't know if I've said it already, but I'm in favor of Scottish independence. I'm in favor of decentralization. I'm in favor of people having say over their lives. I'm in favor of ending colonial plunder, right? Is if Scotland did have access, exclusive control over its oil and gas resources, well, then it would be like Qatar, possibly, of course, without the warm weather and sunshine. But then you dig money out of the ground, and then you'd make it available to take care of your local people and of your own people, and then not engage in imperialist conquests and wars for no reason, in imperial slaughter. So that's all good. You mentioned Europe. Now, I've heard, and I suspect
Yes.
that you would want all the parties' position is to be independent of Scotland and then join the EU. Okay.
Not necessarily the EU. There is EFTA, which is about 3 or 4 small European countries. And it would be, I think, more advantageous for Scotland to be linked to EFTA than towards the European Union.
Okay.
Which the European Union is looking less and less attractive by the day. You know, it's lurching over to the right, and there's a war that we know, is on in Ukraine, and of course we're against imperialistic wars and wars of aggression and invasion, and Europe is not the attractive proposition it once was, and we were reluctantly dragged out of Europe. But we've had time to think and reflect, and EFTA looks like a much more attractive proposition. And we've discovered that membership in EFTA would take about 3 months, whereas we're being told, oh, if you try and go to the European Union, it will take years and you might not get it, and the price might be too high. Whereas the European Free Trade Association, which I think is 4 countries, is much more attractive, and that's Liechtenstein, Norway, Iceland, and Switzerland. Now, some people say Scotland is too small to be independent. Well, we're bigger than Liechtenstein.
Bigger than Iceland.
And, these are all, in terms of population, yes. Yeah. And so, we're not too small.
No.
And I think that people in Scotland are now beginning to feel that they've lost out in the referendum. I think if the referendum was held tomorrow, according to polls, we're talking about maybe 55% of people would vote in favour.
Okay.
For independence. So I think it would be a different kettle of fish if we had the referendum today.
Okay, so I was wrong.
So that's what Alba is all about.
Okay, so I was wrong. So your policy isn't to join the EU, which I think is great, because I told you before, I voted Brexit. Why I voted Brexit is because the elected MEPs, they don't get to propose legislation or veto legislation. They're a secondary body, and there's no way that the demos, the electorate, can remove the rule makers, the lawmakers, which is the unelected council and the unelected commissioners. So it's a Politburo setup. So I'm glad that Scotland doesn't want to join that Politburo setup. Now, what about?
There's also the G7 countries. I think what we're seeing now is a new world order. The G7 GDP is less now than BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and a host of other countries. And so it may be, who knows, further down the line, when Scotland does get its independence, it might look at BRICS as a more attractive proposition for trade.
Okay.
So, you know, I think we're on the cusp of really great things, but it's, will the rest of the UK let us go? Westminster keeps saying that we're a union of equals. Well, if that's the case, then if we're all equal, we should be allowed to democratically opt out of the union, if that's what we want.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Now, I want to take it somewhere else a little bit, right? And there's something you said about Europe is turning more and more rightwards. I personally don't think that right and left are valid so much. I've been smeared as a right winger because I believe in things like liberty and autonomy and decentralization, right? Was it Nancy Pelosi said yesterday or something that a few days ago that anybody who opposes or supports Palestine, they're Putin's puppets, right? There's just this politics of smearing. I think people should have a control over their own borders because open borders didn't work very well for the Native Americans. It didn't work very well for India or the Tasmanian Aborigines or Africa. Say it didn't work really well for the Scottish because they were unable to repel the English. So that's my opinion on that, right? But what about the way that politics has changed over the last few years, where it's become more and more statist, where the government is intruding more and more into people's lives? And I think excessively micromanaging people's lives with low traffic networks and ultra low emission zones and the influence of the World Economic Forum and their agenda. Am I saying the name correctly? Of the party, Alba Party, ALBA?
ALBA, Alba. The Scottish pronunciation is Alba.
Alba. Okay. All right. What's the position of the Alba Party with regards to the World Economic Forum? How many of your members are alumni from the Global Leaders Program, if any? Where do your policies overlap with them or not?
I think that we have more socialist leaning principles. I don't think we think it's right that 8% of the UK owns most of the land and runs the economy. I think that, you know, we are wanting a more equal partnership for our citizens. And certainly, I think there will be radical reforms underway about land ownership in Scotland.
Sure.
You know, back in the day, huge swathes of land were given away by the King of England to his friends.
All right, that I can understand.
And Scotland up that way. And then, you know, at the time of the potato famine in Ireland, we had the Highland clearances in Scotland so that this landed gentry from England could come up with their shooting parties and roam across acres of moors without having to be bothered by the local peasantry.
Yvonne, that I can understand. That I can understand, right? No issue with any of that. That's what you want to do. My question was about the relationship between the Alba Party and the World Economic Forum. So, what's the name of Nicola Sturgeon is a global leader. Trudeau is a global leader. Rishi Sunak, Boris Johnson, and Klaus Schwab himself has said that we have penetrated parties and governments all over the world. So during lockdown, we had these diverse governments, politically diverse governments, all doing the same policies, which I found rather sinister and suspect. You know, are you an alumni of the World Economic Forum? Is Alex Salmond? Do you have a policy of excluding those members, like I know the Heritage Party does?
No, I think that that knowing Alex Salmond and the way that the ambitions that he had for Scotland previously, I think that we would have a very progressive government that puts people first. I know it's old-fashioned and it's unheard of virtually, but nationalising the railways, the ferries, the power, returning energy back to the people. You know, we are an oil-rich nation, and our one and only oil refinery is being closed down next year, and this will have a devastating impact on the local community. You know, thousands of jobs will be affected with the closure of the oil refinery. And again, from a green point of view, it doesn't make sense to bring oil out of the sea and send it halfway to God knows where to get refined.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Net zero makes no sense, right? Which is a whole other conversation. But you still haven't answered the question about the relationship between the Alba Party and the World Economic Forum. Do you have a policy of excluding people who are alumni of that party, or are your members of the party, alumni of the Global Leadership Part? What's the party's relationship with the World Economic Forum? Is there one?
I would really have to look into that. It's something that hasn't grabbed my attention. Okay. And maybe it should have.
Really should have. It should have. It really should. It absolutely really should. Because some of the stuff that you're saying, right? Certainly the green policies and stuff. Okay, I'm gonna go somewhere with you. Okay, and you may not be an expert on this, but the continent that is a net importer of hydrocarbons is telling the world to do without hydrocarbons. 0.04% of the atmosphere is carbon dioxide. That's going to shape the climate more than the magnetosphere or the sun or the Milankovitch cycles. It's a con, and it's a con being fostered by the World Economic Forum, in my opinion, right? And the whole lockdowns, the drive for injecting people, a complete violation of the Nuremberg principles, complete violation of the Nuremberg, right? Where people didn't have the ability to choose, they were pressured, and you know, it was particularly bad in Scotland, from what I could see. I have Scottish family, so that would be a concern for me, and I think for more and more people, as more and more people wake up to the promise of the Great Reset, what they intend for us, that we would nothing, be happy and eat bugs.
The person you would really need to speak to is Kenny McCaskill, because he is our expert on all things to do with the economy and energy, or Alex Salmond, if I can persuade him to come on board. But if it's to the advantage of Scotland to be very much part of the World Economic Forum, then it will happen. But if it's not, you know, I think that they'll just walk away. Yeah.
Yes. Don't allow them to infiltrate you, I would say, right? And I do invite you to look at them, because what they don't like are sovereigntists. So anybody who's a sovereigntist, anybody who's independent, who is going to, you know, march to the beat of their own drum, whether it's Viktor Orban or Donald Trump or Putin or Jeremy Corbyn, they're the ones that get smeared and lambasted. You know?
Yes.
Okay. Yvonne, is there, thank you so much for letting me take it in that direction, right? Is there anything else you want to say? Anything else we haven't covered? Oh, by the way, can people in England join the party?
Yes, we have an international branch, and we do have English members. Chris Coverdale has joined us.
Has he?
We have members in about 30, 40 different countries. They're usually Scots in exile, but, you know, anyone can join. They'd be very welcome to join our bandwagon. It's a very exciting, diverse group of people. And, you know, we meet up regularly and have some excellent debates. And it's a very exciting time to be a member of the Alba Party.
Okay.
For a $5 a month.
£5 a month.
It-
Okay. Incredible value.
Yes, and we're on, it's albaparty.org, O-R-G.
I shall have all the links in the description below and people can go check it out. Is there anything else you want to say? Any last words before we finish up?
Well, we're very much for equality,
Mhm.
and probably more controversially, I'm the women's convener, which is probably why I fell a bit flat on the World Economic Forum questions. But I am the women's convener, and we're involved in quite a tough battle at the moment with the Scottish government over the transgender issue.
Mhm.
And we are very strong on this. I would probably be called a TERF or a bigot. I've been called worse.
I think you're right
But
wing. You're sounding very, very right wing. You believe in things like womanhood. And I bet
well,
you're in favor of family as well.
no, but I'm very much in favor of women's rights. You know, I fought through the tail end of the 60s, through the 70s for women's rights. And we have been oppressed and bullied by men most of our lives. And I am not going to allow a man in a dress to do exactly the same thing.
Shocking.
And
But
yeah,
I'm now a
there,
woman because I say so.
I recognize his right to dress how he wants, to behave how he wants, as long as it doesn't impact negatively on other minority groups. And, you know, women have had enough. We want equality. We've still got a long way to go when you look at the pay gap.
Mm.
We've still got a long way to go to get equality. And as I say, I'm not having men in dresses eroding our rights, which is what they're doing.
Absolutely, Yvonne. Yvonne, I'm completely with you. And by the way, the woke agenda, the LGBTQ agenda, comes from the WEF. And the impact of it is it sets us against each other, has men and women fighting,
Yes.
men in dresses fighting everybody else, and other people supporting the men in dresses, and then it ruptures family and faith and religion. And
well, Nicola Sturgeon was totally sold on this, and this is one of the reasons she's out of power now.
Yeah.
Because it all was brought to a head when a double rapist who decided to call himself a woman was sent to a woman's prison.
Yeah.
And there was hell on about it.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And she is an alumni of the World Economic Forum. And so is Hamza Yusuf. He's also an alumni of
Yes.
the World Economic Forum. And if you look at all the countries that had the lockdown, that did lockdown all over the place, and where they weren't, the media's not smearing the leaders like Trudeau, it's all part of the World Economic Forum Great Reset. Have us fighting each other and destroying faith and family. And for myself, as a child protection social worker, I find the idea that a man in a dress should be able to, or even a teenager in a dress should be able to a teenage male should be able to access female toilets. No, are you kidding? No. You don't get to go in there. And also the other aspect of it is it, in my opinion, it completely delegitimizes being lesbian or being gay. You know, if a teenager a male teenager has feelings towards another male, oh, it must mean you're a woman. No, being gay is part of being a man for some men. Doesn't mean you're a woman. We're the only mammals that think this way, that somehow, you know, my feelings or my desires supersede my DNA. Oh, if I can say this, Yvonne, right?
Well, so we're very strong on that issue, and
Good.
And of course the next thing is going to be the conversion therapy ban that the Scottish government is going to try and bring in. And as far as we're concerned, conversion therapy could be nothing more than sitting down having a chat with a confused child who isn't sure if they're gay or maybe in the wrong body or whatever complex issue they have. these barking mad ideologists are talking about banning conversion therapy, which, as I say, could be something as innocent as a teacher trying to help guide a confused child navigate, through this moral maze.
Yes, well, through this, it's a top-down drive. It's top-down. If you have these feelings, or it must mean you're born in the wrong body. And I know, that other parts of the world, in the Muslim world, there's no such confusion. In South America, there's no such confusion. It's like, okay, you're a boy. Okay, you think you might be gay for a while, fine. But the way that it is right now, it's just horrific. I consider it abusive. It is abusive.
Yes.
Okay.
I've got one member whose daughter, at the age of 12 or 13, announced at the family table, I'm a lesbian. And the family said, well, okay. And they talked about it and processed it and reacted in a non-reactionary way. And the child went off to school, and she told her, having come out, she then told her friends. And one of the teachers said, you know what, maybe you're in the wrong body. And the child was strong enough to be able to say, absolutely not. I'm a lesbian. You're going to have to deal with it. I know what I am, and I am not in the wrong body.
Yes.
I'm simply attracted to people of my sex. And she was strong enough to say that, but she came home quite upset and told her mother. And this sort of nonsense is, when people send their children off to school, they're not, there will be mothers out there worried, what on earth is happening to them when they're out of my sight? Are they being protected? Are they being cared for? Are they being educated? Or are they being pumped full of this insanity?
Yes, they are being pumped full of this insanity. My 19-year-old and 16-year-old never went to school. They were home educated. I was like, I'm not giving them up to the state. They're mine. They belong to the family. Okay, Yvonne, anything else you want to say?
I think we've covered quite a lot, but it would be great if our international membership suddenly zooms up as a result of your show.
Yes, that would be good. Okay, I'm not the biggest of vloggers and being censored on YouTube, but we get the word out, and then you can post it out around all over your social media and stuff. And just thank you so much for making yourself available. And anybody who's watching, please go and check out the Alba Party and know that I'm not pronouncing it correctly. And subscribe, comment, share this. If you've got Scottish friends, share this with them so that Scotland, is free once again and free from the yoke of English imperialism. I mean, well, if that happens, we'll probably have to get more jumpers in the winter without Scottish oil. Yvonne, thank you. Thank you very much. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.